6, ladies and gentlemen, number 26. Find the zeros. What does that mean? Remember, zeros is the same thing as answers, solutions, x-intercepts, whatever you want to call it. You want to solve it. You want to get some answers. So, in order to solve this, if you think about x-intercepts, for example, this is like a y right here, and you want to set y equal to 0 to find the x-intercepts. So you want to find the intercepts, you're going to have to set y equal to 0 and solve. So you really have the quadratic equation 4x squared minus x plus 5 equals 0. Now at this point, since I see that none of my answers are nice answers like 3 and 4, 5 and 6. They're all have roots and fractions and even imaginary values. So I'm going to jump right into the quadratic formula. And there's the quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. The way to use it would be to replace the b's, a's, and c's with parentheses. I'm going to plug in the a, the b, and the c value. The a value is 4, the b value is -1, and the c value is 5. So -1 for b, -1 for b, a is 4, the c value is 5, the a is 4. And when you work out the quadratic formula, on the inside of the square root, let me scroll down a little, on the inside of the square root, you're going to have 1 and then minus 80. Because 4 times 4 is 16, 16 times 5 is 80, over 8 plus or minus with a positive 1 out there in the front. Right, Tyler? Yep. All right. So we're going to keep working on the radical value. 1 minus 80, that's minus 79 or negative 79. So let me bring my work up here. 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 79 over 8. So what do we know about the square root of a negative number? That it has to come out as an I, right? The square root of -1 is I. So in reality, you have 1 plus or minus I times the square root of 79, and it's over 8. Now the whole thing is over 8. However, since we have a complex number, in other words, real parts and imaginary parts, you want to split this denominator to be underneath the 1 and underneath the I. So we're going to split it and make it a 1/8 plus or minus the square root of 79 over 8. And the I that was in the front, we're going to put it in the back. So it could be in the form of a complex number, which has a real part and then an imaginary part. And as you can see, option D is the correct answer on this one. Why is option D the correct answer? Because you can't break down the square root of 79, so we just leave it like that. Okay, guys, let's continue to number 27. Whoa. Number 27, which expression is equivalent to? So you have 3 plus 2i, and you need to square it. That's really easy to do. That's just 3 plus 2i times 3 plus 2i. And now it's just a question of distributing. And remember, the only difference between doing math with x's and i's is that when you have an I squared, you have to replace the I squared with a -1. So let's start by distributing. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2i is positive 6i. And then 2i times 3, that's another positive 6i. And then 2i times positive 2i. Well, the 2 times 2 is 4, but the I times I is I squared. And that's what we need to look out for. I squared is really what? -1. So we really have a -1 right here that we need to multiply the positive 4 by. And let's also remember that the 6i and the 6i, you combine those, kind of like if it were a 6x plus 6x, we'd end up with a positive 12x, but in this case, we have a positive 12i. And let's not forget about the 9 that's out in the front. But anyway, this right here is really a -4. So what's our final answer going to be? It's going to be 9 minus 4, because this is a negative 4, that's really going to be a 5. So 5 is the first part of your answer, plus 12i is the second part of your answer. 5 plus 12i is your answer, which is answer C. Do you get it? Do you like it? I hope so. Number 28, the final question on this page. Find the product. Right here we don't have i's, we have x's, so it's just really distribution and that's it. 5x times x to the third, that is 5x to the third. No, I'm sorry. That is 5x to the fourth, because we have to add them. And then 5x times 5x, that's going to be a positive 25x squared. And then 5x times negative 2, that's negative 10x. And then let's distribute the 3 times x to the third, that's positive 3x to the third. Positive 3 times positive 5x, that's positive 15x. And positive 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So out of all of those terms, what could we combine? We could combine the 25x squared. No, we can't. We can only combine the negative 10x with the positive 15x, huh? And we will get positive 5x. And then it's just a question of bringing everything else down. The 5x to the fourth is the first term. The plus 3x to the third is the second term. Plus 25x squared. And then the minus 6 at the very end. And that is obviously option A. Option A is your final answer there. So let's move on to the last page, numbers 29 and 30. Focusing in on number 29. Whoa, why did I do that? Focusing on number 29. Consider the function, quadratic function, negative 3x squared minus 6x plus 11. It says determine whether it opens up or down. What do you say? Does this parabola open up or down? Down. Why is that? Because the a value is negative. So we already know that it opens down. So it cannot be option B. Option B, it says it opens up. All the other ones say it opens down. Okay, then it says find the axis of symmetry, the vertex and the y-intercept. Well, we should all know from the word wall that the vertex is a coordinate, an x value and a y value, but the x value comes from the formula negative b over 2 times a. That's how to find the vertex x value. Not only that, this same formula will also provide you with the axis of symmetry, because we know that the axis of symmetry is the x value of the vertex. So let's figure this out. The best way to do it is to plug it in with parentheses. X equals negative b over 2 times a. So the b value is negative 6, if you look at the b value right here. And the a value is negative 3, if you look at the a value right there. Let's work this out. You're going to have a positive 6 up on top divided by a negative 6 on the bottom, which means that the vertex x value is negative 1. Now, if you want the y value, what are you supposed to do? Plug it in. So you're supposed to plug it in. And let me get some space up here. And what I want to do is I want to rewrite this f of x function, and I want to set it up to plug in the negative 1. I want to put parentheses on the x and on the x right there. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. All we need to do is plug in the negative 1 into the parentheses and work it out. Then we could find the y value. So negative 1 squared is positive 1. So you're going to have negative 3 times positive 1. That's still negative 3. And then a negative 6 times a negative 1. That's going to be a positive 6. And let's not forget about the plus 11 at the very end. So if I combine from left to right, negative 3 plus 6, that's 3. 3 plus 11, that is 14. So my vertex is right here. It's a coordinate. My x value is negative 1. My y value is 14. So I'm going to put a 14 right here. So now I know my axis of symmetry is simply x equals -1. That's the axis of symmetry, -1 that is. So the x value is -1. I apologize for the axis of symmetry. There it is. That one's too ugly. Okay, and the vertex is -114. So let's go down to our multiple choice answers. So looking at the axis of symmetry, we know that the axis of symmetry is x equals -1, so it can't be D because it says +1 right there. So it's either A or C. So which one's it going to be? What is the vertex itself? We said that the vertex was -114. Both of them have -114, so we need to actually find the y-intercept value. How do we find the y-intercept value? How do you find the y-intercept? You set x equal to 0 and solve, ladies and gentlemen. All right? So that one's really easy to do. Set x equal to 0. This is going to be 0. This is going to be 0. So what's your y-intercept value? It's going to be 11. Okay? So which one has the y-intercept at 11? A. So the correct answer is A. Okay, guys, let's move on to the last question on the practice test. The last question is graphing a quadratic trinomial, which is really a parabola. So how do we go about graphing any parabola? You have to start with the most important point, the vertex value. So how do we find the vertex value? Again, you're going to do x equals -b/2a. So let's plug in those values of b and a. The b value is 1. The a value is -4. So this is going to be a -1 over a -8. So it's really 1/8 the x value. Okay. So remember, your vertex is a coordinate. Your x value is 1/8. And we need to find the y value of the vertex by plugging in 1/8 into the x values. So guys, check this out. Instead of me plugging in 1/8 and doing all this detailed math, I want to get smart about this. I know this is a multiple choice test. So let me just go to the multiple choice part of it and look at the answers. And when I do that, so checking out option A. Could option A be a representation of this parabola? Does this parabola open up or down? It opens down. So I already know it's either going to be A or B because both of those open down. It cannot be C or D because both of those are opening up. So just by knowing your A value, you could already narrow it down to a 50-50 shot. So what else could we say? Doesn't this parabola look exactly like this one? Yes. The only difference is the shading, isn't it? So this parabola right here, or this one, it is representing this. All we need to do is check which area we need to shade. It's either going to be the inside of the parabola or the outside of the parabola. So how could we check? Let's check the point 0, 0. Right? Check the point 0, 0. That means plug in 0 for y and plug in 0 for x. Plug in 0 for y, you're going to end up with this, and then a +2 on this side. Is 0 less than 2? Yes, it is. So what does that tell you about plugging in 0 for y and 0 for x's? What does that tell you? That it does work. That means it is a solution. That means I really do need to shade in the inside right here, which means that A is the answer.